Unfortunately, which we lost half of it in 1971. Again, allegations of human rights violations took place from the West Pakistan. Allegations on the Hindu majority took place from us when Pakistan was created. And there were indeed human rights violations. The minority is always suppressed. Action is taken against them. Shots are fired at them. So the nation we finally got with such a struggle, we have to look in retrospect to see how and what were the causes that led to its creation. That is why Pakistan is today called the Federation of Pakistan. If you understand the concept of federation, perhaps a lot of things would become resolved. Kashmir was majority Muslim. There was a United Nations Resolution 242, I think it was, or I may have it wrong, that the Kashmiris were to be given the option of holding a plebiscite to choose for themselves their right of self-determination. But because they were a minority, till today a progressive, developed India cannot face the fact that there is rebellion within one of their major provinces in the state of Kashmir. And they do not accept this Kashmiri uprising till even today, where the Kashmiris are throwing stones like the Palestinians throw stones. Because it is a minority which is not significant enough for the global community to recognize in the United Nations, their struggle will continue and continues to date. Because there is no global recognition or sympathy that is arising or compelling the state of India to allow the decision for the Kashmiris to decide their own fate. So human rights violations now, we don't have to go further, we have to look within Pakistan ourselves. There is one side maintaining the writ of the state. All in this room will not disagree that yes, the writ of state has to be maintained. I say yes, and all those who try to break the writ of the state must be penalized also. But we have a great situation in Balochistan. Missing persons have gone missing, their basic human rights stand violated. We do not know who is missing. We do not know where they are taken. But at the same time, if state assets are destructed, then the people who are at the helm of affairs have to decide where does the balance lie. What if this movement gains strength, although it comprises only 5% of population of Pakistan? What if this movement gains ascendance? And suddenly the international community, which is already taking an opportunity to destabilize Pakistan, what if they come forward and start taking this issue out of our borders? If perhaps it already has gone, we will be faced with another situation. And likewise, this would be a situation may continue to spread in other regions. Now this is where the rights of minorities was first legislated, and a concept was recognized that it is not always the will of majority, because that was the very basis that created Pakistan, that there was a majority and there was an insecure minority which eventually led to the creation of a state. So this legislation was first recognized in the collective and general regime of the then Hungarian parliament in 1849. Now in Hungary, the rights of minorities was recognized as legitimate rights, and majority rights could not overstep or completely override the minority rights existing in Hungary. This was also quoted in the Australian Parliament in 1857. Thereafter, after two world wars, the United Nations incorporated the rights of minorities and had passed several resolutions. But the United Nations is always stultified to implement its acts because there is a veto power with 5 members of the Security Council. Under the United Nations, there is, if you look at the role of courts, coming to the role of courts, there is the International Court of Justice established under the UN Charter in 1948. The International Court of Justice, only contracting states, at least from countries which are members of the United Nations, can bring and bring a cause before the ICJ. A case from Nicaragua came against the United States in the recent past, some 2 decades ago, because the US was carrying on covert operations in Nicaragua. The court exercised jurisdiction and passed a finding that a foreign country cannot carry out these operations and that these are unjust and violative of the human rights of the Nicaraguan people. What happened as a result? The US withdrew from the ICJ's jurisdiction and remained remained only in that jurisdiction which it chose to be represented in. So the Nicaraguan judgment became a nullity and became ineffective. We also saw the ruling of Israel has built a wall dividing East Jerusalem from West Jerusalem. This matter was also entertained by the International Court of Justice. The court passed a ruling and gave great hope and said, no, you cannot build this wall, please take it down, because it is one, it is in the occupied territory, two, it is dividing the Palestinian people, and it is a means of oppression by the state of Israel. What happened? The judgment was never acted upon or implemented. Now we look at in our country. Before that, in fact, I have my papers mentioned, we noticed that there was a genocide in the state of Rwanda. There was a genocide in Yugoslavia against Bosnian Muslims by Serbian Christians. It was not until the violence reached at such level and human rights became irrelevant because there was merciless killing and dumping of human bodies in mass graves that the international community stepped in. It was on account of these two genocides, the International Criminal Court was set up. The International Criminal Court, here an individual can bring a case, or a contracting country who's part of the International Criminal Court can bring a case to the court. And now we see what are called war crimes against humanity, war crimes. People who have been caught, as in the case of the Serbian general, his trial is on, and other trials of those people who have violated human rights just to stay in command and control of their particular region. They are now on trial before the world. There is also another court called the European Court of Human Rights. Here again, this was set up by the 47 contracting European states, and here again an individual or a contracting state can bring a case, and the court can adjudicate on these issues. Now, here, because the area confined to the European court will only be in Europe, the interest of the United States is not directly affected. Hence, perhaps not perturbed by that court, the court continues to function today. The human rights was recognized in the United Nations in the 1948 Declaration. It was earlier recognized in what is called the Magna Carta in, I think, the 12th century in the United Kingdom, and the Habeas Corpus Act of 1676, which gives rights to people to get due process.